Good morning. Live from the campus of the United States Sports Academy in Daphne, Alabama, this is Sports Talk, your weekly discussion by members of the faculty and staff at the University of the United States Sports Academy. My name is Dr. Arthur Ogden, and I serve as host. This morning, our guests for the panel include Dr. Steve Butler, who is our Dean of Academic Affairs, and Mr. Jack Kerwin, who is our Director of Communications. Well, those of you who follow college football know that we have another hurdle to jump over, so to say. A hurdle that disappeared in 1972, but now seems to want to rear its ugly head. And that has to do with freshman eligibility. The Big Ten Conference Commissioner, Jack Delaney, surprised us this past week by telling us that his conference is taking under advisement and under consideration the fact that freshmen, particularly in basketball and men's basketball and football, will no longer be eligible. It caught everyone somewhat off guard, but there have been a lot of people with a lot of comments. We're going to take a look at that question this morning, but by way of background, it was in 1972 that the NCAA did away with freshman eligibility. Many of us who played before 1972 realized it was just a fact of life. Freshmen did not play. They were there. They may have played some freshman football, maybe 2 or 3 games the most. Did not practice much with the varsity squads, but they still had their requirements for eligibility and so forth. It is perhaps their phrase, a year of readiness, that makes us suspect the Big Ten of trying to pull off another one of their high-handed maneuvers. Nevertheless, their claim is that this is going to help graduation rates, this is going to help accountability when it comes to eligibility, and it will overall make for better play and happier student athletes. The discussion is clearly one that's not closed, but Delaney would like to have a national dialogue. Gentlemen, do either of you remember, well, you were 6 in 1972, Jack, but Steve, what about you? What do you remember about 1972 before that affected playing time?
I actually graduated from high school in 1972.
So you know what's
this would
going
have
on.
had a direct effect on me if I would have went to a 4-year school. I went to a junior college when we did call them junior colleges back in the day,
Right.
And so it didn't affect me. It wouldn't affect me anyway, but it could have had the opposite effect. The big question I have is if we want to couch this as, we're 3 of us are educators. We work in a university, and we care about students doing well, and when you put retention on it and those kind of words. But I guess my big question would be, as an educator, do we only care about men's basketball and football? Right. Female swimmers work just as hard and just as long as hours as football players and men's basketball players. Women's basketball players certainly work as hard as men's basketball players. So why isn't this across the board? I think that if you're going to do it, you have to make all freshmen eligible. I don't think you can pick and choose the sports.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it won't. Maybe my earlier comments indicated that it was only for the big effect it will have, though, is on men's basketball and football, because where does the money come for swimming and everything else?
Sure, all sports coming from football.
Yeah, Jack, what are your observations on this?
Well, the youngin in the group here, I really wasn't affected by that coming, heading to college. I can see, we've had this discussion earlier, Arthur, about, the physiological impact that it can have. Arthur was stating how it can, in his experience, he's seen that the greatest development physically with athletes, especially those in especially football, which is Arthur's area of expertise. happens between their freshman and sophomore year.
Right.
I don't know if I've seen that necessarily the same way that you've seen it.
Right.
In my lifetime, I guess I've seen more kids are starting to work out earlier. They're developing faster. And you're going to have instances where kids are going to get hurt no matter what. I mean, there's a kid who could be in a program for 5 years and never gain more than 5 pounds, even under, a strength and conditioning program run by a college. It happens. And it could be an elite athlete.
Right.
I'm not, I could see the proponents of this, like I can see their point of view. I guess for me, it comes down to just opportunity. If it's going to be there for other students or other athletes, then it should be there for all the athletes to be playing if they're at the university. That's how
I
I see
think
it.
that's a good point, and I really think it will affect all sports, but who knows? It's just they're just presenting it out there as a form of dialogue right now.
And they are getting people to talk about it. I mean, the Pac-12 is talking about
Well,
it.
if my surmise is if the
Right.
Big Ten implements it, the Pac-12 will soon follow.
And it'll be interesting to see if the Big Ten goes out there unilaterally, because they're supposed to be part of this Power Five kind of thing. They're supposed to be their own.
Right.
Arthur made the statement earlier about it being a fact of life when we were growing up. I think back to 1966, the first game ever played in Pauley Pavilion. The UCLA freshmen beat the defending national champs by 28 points.
Oh yeah.
And most people, most basketball experts, are under the impression that if Lou Alcindor, Mike Warren, Lucius Allen, and then Shackelford, and I can't remember who the fifth one was, would have been eligible as freshmen, that UCLA would have won 9 national championships in a row, and that one year. But looking back on it, it's probably a good thing, because then we wouldn't have had the wonderful story of Texas Western,
Right.
with their 5 black starters
Sure.
beating
Kentucky.
Kentucky.
in the
Yeah.
championship game.
Well, the question for me, and this is a vital question, I think it's a little bit, not just premature, I think it's a little bit high-handed of the Big Ten, as the barometer always for college sports, from a conference standpoint with the rest of it, has been football. Say it's wrong, say it's right, doesn't make any difference. If it were a different sport, let's say swimming, Auburn would be up there all the time. If it were gymnastics, Alabama would be up there all the time. If it were baseball, LSU for many, many years. And in other words, who won last year? San Diego State, somebody from Long Beach State, somebody. But if they're going to say, well, we want them to get readiness and so forth, as Jack had mentioned earlier, he and I were discussing this. I, for a long time, have felt that we should not have freshmen play. Not so much because of the academic, but because of the acclimation to the culture of the university, as well as to the physical developments. Now, we are given all kinds of exceptions to the rule, recruiting a kid that's an outstanding defensive lineman, come in, you can play right away. It was at Gandici at Mississippi. That's an exception. That's not the rule. And that's the bottom line, because the most growth, and I saw this when I was coaching at Auburn, that takes place, as you suggested, is between the freshman and the sophomore years. Now, I have a quick little proposal. Do away with freshman eligibility. Number one. In that year of ineligibility, they don't go to practice every day. You see, before they were ineligible, but they still practiced every day. And the only time they had off was the Saturday that they played. Do not allow them more than 2 hours on-field practice a week, but give them all the time that they want in the weight room, and 3 hours a day in study table. So that this is a serious approach for their readiness. That's it physically and academically. And if they're going to play any games, which can be expensive, they play 2 games, that's it. Now with those provisos, I don't think anybody can be cheated, but there will be those who think that they're going to be cheated, okay? Another further proviso. If these students who want to come in and play as freshmen are so gifted academically and physically, they can do what Reese Dismuke did, and how many other countless players are doing. They graduate from high school in December, they enroll in January. If a student comes in January and goes through that whole spring term, all summer study school and so forth, and spring football, I'd say that person's pretty well ready. That's my proposal. Tear it apart.
There are some people in this part of the country who view this as the Big Ten's another attempt by the Big Ten to reduce the powerfulness of the Southeastern Conference.
Kevin Skarbinski.
Yeah, it's I think the thing that really throws this whole thing out of whack in my mind is men's basketball and one and done.
Yeah.
You know, how does one and done work if you can't play during year one?
Right.
You know, there's John Calipari's become famous about starting fresh
every year.
Yeah, 5 freshmen every year. This year they had a couple guys come back. I heard a guy on the radio the other day said that Kentucky's second team would be the favorites to win the SEC tournament if Kentucky's first team wasn't playing.
Right.
But how would that work with the one and done? I don't know if.
To me, this is what that is aimed at.
Yeah.
It's trying to get rid of the
Yeah,
one
that
and
could
done.
be part of it. And you know what the options will be. They'll go directly to the NBA, NBA D League, or they'll play or European. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that'll be the end of it. But I think that the NBA is beginning to revisit the 1 year. Obviously, the NFL believes that it needs more time. They
Right.
want at least 3
We're
years.
looking at 3 years out of high
And that's
school.
precisely because of physical development and
Right.
also emotional development. We don't know if it's going to work with Jameis or not. That's yet to see whether or not he's mature enough.
Back to what you said a few minutes ago, Nick Saban was interviewed on ESPN the night of National Signing Day, and he said the biggest question mark with the kids is not how they adjust academically, how they adjust athletically. It's how they adjust to being away from mom,
Yeah,
being away from their friends, being in a new location.
I think that's very big. It's
Yeah,
not
and-
discussed at all.
And, having said that, you would think that this would be a good thing for them kids, the adjustment period.
Yeah,
Well,
would be.
one thing I would say to that is a lot of the kids, especially kids who are going to be going to Alabama, stuff like that, they're not just looking at Alabama as the end-all be-all. They're looking at Alabama as being a transition to get them to the next level. We're talking
Right.
about elite, top-level prospects, and that's the people who are going to have the biggest issue with
Sure.
this because they don't want to impede their progress to getting to where they want to go.
And
This is a career for them. This is not
Exactly.
just going to college.
And one of the things that they're doing, and I want to toss this out because I think this is important. Some of you, and some of our viewers out there, next fall when you begin to watch some of the ball games, take a look at some of the players and they'll tell you what year they're in. I think you will be amazed to find the number of students who are in graduate schools.
Yes.
A week ago, my sons and I were up at the Alabama-Auburn basketball game, and they announced the lineups. So-and-so, sophomore, so-and-so. There were 2 starters at Auburn who were graduate students. That's 40%. 40% of the starting lineup for Auburn's men's basketball team is graduate students. That's remarkable. And the other alternative, and the other thing that you'll hear, who was the #1 recruit this year that went to Auburn? I forget his name. Do you remember his name?
Yeah, as a defensive lineman.
Yeah, from down Florida. Anyway, he says, I like Auburn's 3-year plan. You know what their 3-year plan is? You get in here and you go to summer school. You finish your degree in 3 years. And then you go in the NFL. Their graduation rate, Auburn's graduation rate now, is much, much higher in football than it is for any other segment of the population. It's amazing. And they're not the exception. There are a lot of schools that are doing this. A lot of players are realizing I've got this opportunity. Russell Wilson got finished. The irony is this too. If Jameis Winston had done that, he'd be eligible. He'd be graduate now. He could go play somewhere else. Remember, he was a redshirt freshman. Right. He may even have 2 years because he only played 2 years. Now, that's something that a lot of schools are doing. They're going to school in the summer. They're getting their degrees early. So there are a lot of things that are happening that a lot of people don't know about. This is going to be tussled around, and we never know what's going to happen. It involves the NCAA. But ultimately, it is not an NCAA regulation, one way or the other. These regulations really are set by the individual conferences.
Right.
So
my question with that, with the Big Ten, is if, say, they go out and they pitch it to the other conferences, try to get them involved, but the other ones don't do it, does the Big Ten go ahead and do it anyway? And if so, I'm thinking that the Big Ten will be hurt, will be shooting itself in the foot.
Well, Thad Maher, the basketball coach at Ohio State, said I'm getting crushed in recruiting. Yeah, it's going to hurt some people, and it may end up, hurting the Big Ten. But be that as it may, we'll see what happens.
If the Power 5 conferences all adopt it, it could help some of the smaller schools.
Sure.
Because, if you coach at Marshall, you can come say to a 5-star recruit, you can play next year with us. You can't play next year at Alabama.
Right. That would be the difference too.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, gentlemen, any final words?
I think it's not. I don't believe it's going to happen.
I would agree. I can't see it happening. Ultimately, if you go through all the process, it's going to come down to money. And I think schools will figure that they're going to lose money, either in terms of television, just with recruits not coming because they're opting to go to different schools.
Right.
But you never know. They may take the altruistic route and go ahead and do what they think is best in the youngsters.
I don't think it would be altruistic. I think it would be purely self-serving. But that's what the Big Ten is. They believe that they are
my conference. Come on,
God. They believe that they are God's gift to anything on this earth. Anyway, gentlemen, Steve and Jack, thank you. And those of you who are watching in, thank you very much. Remember, this is recorded. We put it on YouTube. And we do appreciate the emails we're getting from you that suggest what topics we want to tackle. We even got an email suggesting that we redo our set here somehow. So we followed that email as well. So if you have a suggestion one way or the other, please send it to sportstalk@usssa.edu. Till next week at this time, this is Dr. Arthur Ogden at Sports Talk. Have a great day in sport.